Early on in this process, I asked if we had or were planning to engage with the Virginia Hospital Association to use some of the information that they had done in their after action planning. Is that someone you all have talked to or plan to talk to?
Yep, so I believe our team, our healthcare, we've taken those after actions, and we are going to be able to incorporate a lot of that findings and that feedback into our after action report. So we are focusing on that, all the different aspects of healthcare, including that.
Okay, Senator Suderland, you have a question?
Yes, Senator Servo, or Mr. Chairman, I don't so much have a question as just a concern to express. I was under the impression that we'd get a lot more substantive information, sort of as your question just implied. Mm-hmm. And so I have significant concern about the amount of resources that have been put in this project. And I would like us to see more of the substance of where we are presently and where it's going. And it's a great concern for me.
Okay. Thanks, Senator Suderland. I agree. I share your concern. I think that's why we're going to distribute everything to everybody as soon as Amigo puts it together, I think this evening or later this week. Does anybody else have any questions? Yeah, Mr. Jones. Oh, I'm sorry, Favola has one. Senator Favola, then Mr. Jones.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. It's a good outline, but I guess my question sort of follows some of the comments that have been made. I would like some indication of the stakeholder groups that will actually be interviewed. I mean, there are a number of groups, not just constituents, but public health officials, associations, and actually there were government committees at both the local, the state, and the federal. They were all interacting on this pandemic. So I just want to make sure that we get a wide enough perspective from all the players, and I didn't get a flavor of who exactly you were going to bring into the conversation. And maybe you can provide that later, or that's the next step, but I think it's an important step.
No, I couldn't agree more. I think it's incredibly important. And so, when we had reached out not only to the department leads for folks, to be interviewed and connected with, we also asked for additional associations, folks that they think they believe would be important to reach out to. And so we can certainly provide that list to you of all of the folks and the affiliations that we have reached out to, that we've connected with. We can provide a list of interviewees themselves, those names exactly, if you're interested in that. But if there are specifics that you're looking for, we can absolutely provide this subcommittee that list so that you can see sort of the scope and who we've reached out to, and then perhaps where, if there are any gaps. And if you see any gaps, then we can absolutely fill. So happy to do that.
Mr. Chairman, I think that information would be helpful if it's the committee's wish.
Great. Senator Favola, I agree with you, and I think it's good for us to see a list of every organization and governmental agency that was reached out to. I think to be very useful for everybody on here. And so, Ms. Burnett, did you say is that part of the weekly updates we've been given, or is that something else you're going to prepare and send over to Amigo?
So we can provide that larger holistic list of everybody. We have incorporated a lot of that information into the monthly updates that we've been providing Amigo. So we talked through that also during our biweekly calls with the team. And so a lot of this information has been conveyed both verbally and then in our updates. But for the more holistic list, we can provide that list separately and provide that to the subcommittee.
Yeah, I think we need to see that a list, overall list. So, Mr. Jones, you had a question.
Mr. Chairman, to your question earlier, I see on your project timeline that you've got 3.2 that the 6th month you would give us a developed AAR and IP. Would you have that information to the chairman's question of a higher level, just initial takeaways from what you found so far?
So I'm not sure I'm following the questions, or
Well,
can you?
I guess just, bluntly, we're trying to see where you are, what you've done, and what we might be seeing to help assist us as we are, I guess, processing the information that you're sending monthly. I think his question was, can you give us a takeaway initially, right? And you
Yeah.
said not at this point, but you say on your project timeline that in June you'll have a developed AAR and an IP draft. I would think if you've got a draft, you would then have a better idea or general idea of where the concerns are or what you've seen to date. So that's question one. And then question two, is there value in an extension from 9 months to, let's say, 11 or 12 months of what you would bring back to the subcommittee for the Commonwealth to consider?
Absolutely, sir. So I'll start with the second question, and I know there is some discussion of an extension that's already sort of in the works, and I think Amigo can likely speak to that more eloquently than I can. And so the proposed extension, I believe, is until December. And to your question, do I think there's value? I absolutely do. I recommend the extension, particularly because it'll allow us to gain a little bit more insight and have more time to do any additional research. To Senator's point, if we have missed any group or an affiliation, we'll have a little more opportunity to reach out to them. So that'll allow us to, little breathing room in the, not only the data collection, but also the development of the after action. So yes, I do believe that would be very beneficial. And then going back to the first question that you had, the draft, when we provide that in June, is going to be, again, very preliminary. These are the initial observations that we're going to be assessing. And so the way we're going to be doing that is, as we get the observations, we then look through that, we do the analysis, and we then tease out the themes that we're starting to find. And so because we haven't started the analysis yet, and we're just in data collection itself, everything is just getting put into that repository, and then we can start doing the in-depth look at, okay, this is what's come up, this is what's been flagged, now we're starting to see a theme, and so that step is really what's next. So that can start right after we're finished with our initial data collection from all the interviews, because those are ongoing right now.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mr. Jones. Mayor Lucas Burke, did you have a question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Or not mayor, you're not mayor yet.
Vice Mayor, thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Yes, sir. Glad to be here. And Ms. Burnett, thank you for the presentation. I feel like I'm adequately updated. And I guess I see now why I'm here as part of the rural area, even though Portsmouth is not declared rural. Just want to make sure that some of the citizens may be included in the interviews and the surveys, because a lot of the areas that are represented sometimes in rural areas don't even have access to internet or broadband or access to be able to be included. So just want to make sure that if that's my role, that I'm here to help identify those areas that may be missed that are identified in rural communities.
Understood. So yes, we absolutely, can have that conversation to see if there are folks that, we can reach out to separately. We haven't necessarily reached out to the public at this point. We've really focused our efforts on the departments and the agencies that were listed, in the joint resolution. And then we're taking into account any additional recommendations of groups or committees or affiliations that the leads had recommended. So to date, we have not engaged with the public, but we can absolutely, speak with you. Perhaps we can even interview you to get those perspectives, of really what you want to bring to the table to make that particular item, raise that flag, right, and raise it up and to include in this effort.
Thank you.
Of course.
Okay, Senator Hashmi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms.